Hello, welcome to Calling Sports. Sorry for the camera issues. My camera super zoomed in right now and I can't get that fixed. But I wanted to bring this live stream to you guys as quick as I can. Fingers crossed my audio is working this time. If someone can let me know in the chat, that would be awesome. So, Utah Jazz had a great game today, just really stellar performance. They had a really rough first half. They weren't able to hit 3-pointers, which they never really did at any point in the game. But they were down by 15 at one point in the second quarter, and then went into the half down by 13, which has happened to the Jazz in other games this year. And in those games, I don't think they won a single one of them. Now, the game that this reminded me the most of this season was actually the last time that the Jazz played the Knicks, where the Jazz went up into the second half by double digits and were absolutely torched. I got a shout out from Australia from Sean Deslandes in the chat, and I have to interrupt for that one. Thank you so much, man, for hopping in on the stream. So please leave any comments, any thoughts you have on the game in the live chat, and we will get to those in a few minutes. So just like that Jazz game, Doc against the Knicks earlier in the season, Doc Rivers' son, Austin Rivers, went off. In that game, he did it in the second half to seal the game. In this game, he did it in the first half. I believe he had 25 points on 10 of 10 shooting in the first half, 5 of 5 from 3, and he ended the game with 25 points. The Jazz didn't let him do anything to beat them in the second half, in large part due to the fact that I believe Austin went to the second half with 4 fouls. So with that foul trouble, that really helped the Jazz not have to shut down their dominant offensive player of the game. Donovan tonight had a really rough game, just wasn't shooting well at all. Let me look at his exact stat line. He was 3 for 15, 2 for 9 from 3, 50% at the free throw line on the 2 shots he took, and he scored a total of 9 points, so he wasn't able to get to double digits. However, he did have 8 rebounds, which is definitely higher than normal, and seeing him be able to make up for his stat line, not as much as needs be, but somewhere else, is overall just nice to see that he stayed in the game and he didn't get put out by having his field goal percentage just tank in this matchup. So, leading scorer for the Jazz was Royce O'Neal with 20 points. If you had told me that Royce was the leading scorer with 20 points, I do not think that I would have predicted that the Jazz won. He was followed closely by Mike Conley with 19 and Gobert with 18. Shout out to those two who led the team with plus 27. That definitely shows how vital Gobert is to the Jazz team, especially on the defensive side. If I have the stats correctly, before the game, the Jazz defense with Gobert for the 36 minutes he's on the court is in the 97th percentile in the NBA. Only 3% of lineups are better in the whole league than the Jazz having Gobert on the court, regardless of who is surrounding him. Now, when he's off the floor and Derek Favors is on the floor, the Jazz are in the 16th percentile in the league defensively. So that's hard to see. Definitely want to see some improvement there by Favors. I would have to delve more into the stats because I don't feel like Favors is just that much worse defensively. I wonder how much of that is Favors playing with other bench players like Clarkson, but I don't think that makes up for him for that big of a disparity. That's an 81% disparity in the percentile. So the Jazz really need to shore up their bench defense. But overall tonight, just really great resilience shown by this Jazz team. Donovan wasn't hitting shots early in the game. The Jazz could not buy a 3-pointer. They ended the game, just to double check, with shooting 31.3% from the 3-point line, and were only able to hit 15 3-pointers. So had they hit 20, I believe they would have been the first team in NBA history to hit 20 3-pointers in back-to-back games. They didn't, so they're going to have to shoot to do that here in the future this season. But they could honestly be the best 3-point shooting team in NBA history this season if they keep up at the clip they've been shooting at, and also have a top 5, top 6 defense in the league. So if they're able to do that, I have a really hard time not seeing them in the Western Conference Finals. And while we'll have to wait until February 24th when they play the Lakers for the first time, I really feel like this Jazz team is capable of being able to take a series against the Warriors at least to 6 games, if not 7. I totally get that is rather outlandish, just based on how amazing the Lakers are from a roster perspective this season. But the Jazz are starting to show me that they really could be a lot more than what I thought they could be at the beginning of the season. They started off 4-4, and now they're 13-4. So they're on a 9-game win streak with a rough stretch coming up. They have back-to-back games against Dallas this week. Dallas, good team. They have been hit and miss this season, but Rick Carlisle is a great coach. And then they follow that with another game against Denver. And this game, Denver has Michael Porter Jr. back, which hurts them defensively, but absolutely helps them just tremendously on the offensive end. So it'll be interesting to see. Jazz, if they win these next 3 games, could easily go on a 17-game stretch of without a loss. But this is going to push them and definitely define this win streak if it continues. So Marshall Nelson said in the chat, and asked for my opinion on Bogey. So Bogey's injury is a wrist injury. I believe it's on his shooting hand, which is really hard to come back from, I'd imagine. He shot, what did he shoot tonight? He was 2 for 10 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and was 5 of 6 from the free throw line. And that's what allowed him to sneak into double digits. So Bojan, I think, is going to come back and at least get back to being a 40% or 38, 40% 3-point shooter. Now, one thing that's happened this year is Mike Conley has come into his own. He's been putting up much better numbers. Let me check his average here on the year really quick. He's only averaging 16.4 points a game, but that's a lot more and a lot better than he was doing for last season. One thing that almost concerns me is that Mike and Bojan might have switched places, where because Mike is doing so well and he demands the ball in his hands, that now Bojan isn't able to have the ball as much as he was last year and won't be able to get into rhythm nearly as quick, or will just struggle getting into rhythm for most games. Since when Mike truly came into his own, that was in the bubble. He absolutely just became a great second option and a great asset to the team, and especially to Donovan Mitchell, taking some pressure off of his shoulders. But that was when the Jazz didn't have Bojan. So to trying to make this trio of guards work, I know Bojan typically starts at small forward, but let's be realistic here. He is a shooting guard. The Jazz just like to play a bit smaller there. So I'm concerned that we might see him not come back and not hit where he was last season until maybe after the All-Star break. I'm fingers crossed that that's not true. He has had some great games this year, and I think he's had great games where Mike also performed really well. But that's a concern that I have. Conley's plus minus is the highest in the league, says Sean in the chat. Yeah, I'm not sure if 538 has some new numbers. I know about a week ago, they did most valuable player rankings, and they had Mike Conley as number 2 on that list. Now, those lists don't really correspond well to who will win the MVP. The MVP is typically the most productive star who adds a lot of value to their team. But Mike is honestly one of the most valuable players in the NBA right now. Just the spark that he's able to bring and the fact that he's able to facilitate as well as he is. It does help a lot that the Jazz have greatly increased their three-point shooting and had a great percentage while doing that. So that facilitates a lot of passing around the perimeter that leads to him getting some more assists this season. So Dante May asked a question. What do you think about Ryan Smith's background in data and research maybe having something to do with how efficient the Jazz are being? That's a really good question. So I think the NBA is going to where the Jazz were going either way. And maybe Ryan Smith did talk to Quinn and say something about that. Ryan Smith obviously is a very hands-on business owner. You don't sell your company for $8 billion and do what he did with Qualtrics without being greatly involved. On the other hand, I do wonder how much he wants to be involved with the Jazz at the beginning. And if he's stepping back and letting them do their thing before he starts interjecting and doing and adding more to what moves he wants them to make. The Jazz really didn't make any major moves over the offseason. They drafted Doak, which was great. They drafted Hughes, which is a player who has a lot of potential. Bringing Favors was awesome, but not really a big move. It was a known commodity. Signing Clarkson, he brought the Jazz to being the best offense in the league after they traded for him last year. Then signing Gobert, I feel like was a must. Gave him more than the max. I know everyone doesn't agree with that, but I think it was the right call. So I think the Jazz were progressing here to begin with. One of the best teams, I think you could argue, to never win it, as much as I don't like James Harden, was the James Harden, Chris Paul team, where they had some amazing offense, were shooting the three, and were able to just defend a lot better than they defended. And they were not having a horrendous game from three in that game 7 against Golden State, from going to the finals against the LeBron James and Cleveland Cavs and probably winning it that year. Houston Rockets probably would have had a title had they not had that horrendous of a game from three. So I don't think Ryan Smith had anything to do with this. Would not be surprised if he did. But overall, what the Jazz are doing this year, if they can continue to hit threes at a 40% clip, or even lower at a 38-39 like they did last year, at the quantity that they're shooting, I believe they're averaging 44 a game, and defend with Gobert like they do, they're going to be one of the all-time best defensive and three-point shooting teams in the league and really have a chance to make some waves during the playoffs this year. So looks like the live chat's kind of coming to an end. Let me take a look at the box score real quick. If you have any more thoughts, please leave those in the chat and I'll get to them before we head out. So Clarkson had a mediocre game. He was plus 10, but only had 13. We already talked about all of the starters. Niang had some clutch threes towards the end. He only scored 9 points. He was 3 of 6 from 3, which are all the field goals he shot. So Niang is a player who, if you get the right 10 minutes out of him, and if you're able to get him those open looks, really just like adds to the Jazz as a whole. So this game, while lackluster, showed a lot about the Jazz and that they have that resilience to come back. So, last question of the night from Dante May. Do you think we make any moves or keep it as it is? So, leave in the comments below if there's any moves you think the Jazz can make. Right now, they're clicking. While Joe didn't have a great night tonight, he's been doing much better since he came back from resting his sore Achilles. I think we leave it as it is. I just don't see any moves that we could make where we don't really risk the chemistry that we have. The reason the Jazz have had a relatively hot start this year is because the only player who's had to get used to playing with the team is Favors. And that's more so with Bojan, Conley, and Clarkson than actually the rest of the team. So the Jazz typically don't make any moves. The Clarkson move, I think, was an awesome move because all you had to do was get rid of Exum, who wasn't really a great fit. I feel like unless you're trading a bunch of assets, like if you wanted to get rid of Oni and Doak and Hughes, 3 players I would not want to get rid of, you don't really have anyone you're willing to give up. So there are some, we're going to keep going with the live chat, just keep them rolling in. And once that stops, we'll stop the stream for the night. So what do you think about Rudy for DPOY? I don't think there's any player in the league who is affecting shots as much as he is. There are some just blanket box score stats that don't always look the best. But when you get into the deeper analytics, there's no one who does what he does. That difference that he brings, just being able to affect shots even when he's 6 feet away, is something that only he can do. And that's why the Jazz played him $200 million. Do I think he'll win it? I don't know. I mean, you have Giannis and you have Davis, who are probably the 2 biggest individuals who are competing with him on that. And winning it 3 years in a row is really hard. He didn't do that. But winning it after the break is also really hard. There's a want for variety in those rewards. So do I think he'll deserve it? Yes. Do I think that some other players will have a case and possibly win it? Yeah, that's what I'd lean with. Wouldn't be putting my money on him if I was making a bet. So next question is Joshua Siffis. What position do the Jazz need to improve on? That's a really good question. Athletic wings would be awesome. We have a great video that I'll add at the end card, or you can go find on our channel on looking at some athletic wings that the Jazz could pick up. There's some great looks there, but going to be hard to get one. If I were to say what position I think they need to improve on the most right now overall is just having better defense when Rudy's not on the court. I would need to look and see who's entirely at fault with that. But as long as Favors is able to continue to click and get back into form, I think that will pick up and the Jazz will be able to stop second units better than they're able to stop them right now. Thankfully, they're able to outshoot those second units. And because of that, it hasn't been a major problem up to this point. Basketball Fanatic says, why do you think we started off so slow? Maybe it's because it's the Knicks. This should be an easy win. Part of it has to do with the fact that the Knicks have had just an abnormally amazing defense to start the year. And that's not just me as a Jazz fan saying that. I listened to a Knicks podcast today just to get some viewpoints from the other side. And they're just absolutely doing an amazing job guarding the 3. They're not doing anything super special. So they're going to come back down to earth on that. So, but one thing they do that does hurt the Jazz is they get up into our shooters and make it really hard for them to get good looks. So the Knicks have the Jazz's number. Thankfully, they're in the East and we don't have to fear about them sneaking into the 6th or 7th seed and having to face them in the first round, since that would be a really concerning matchup for me. David Chase, do you think we'll be number 1 in the power rankings this next week? I don't know. It depends on I don't have our schedule pulled up. I can't remember if the Dallas game is on Sunday or on Monday. I think we'd have to go undefeated and beat Dallas and Denver this week to stay number one. If we don't, the Lakers and Clippers are going to sneak back in. I did miss a Marshall Nelson comment. I think Favors needs more credit. Seemed to be the missing piece we needed last season, and now we have him, and he kind of doesn't get mentioned. I'm so glad we have him. I am too. There's definitely some things that still need to get worked out defensively, but overall, he just really brings this dependability. While 16th percentile might not be great overall, I would need to look and try to remove the first half of the season just because that was him getting back into groove. And I think that over the last 8 games, that over the last 9 games in the winning streak, he's improved dramatically. So I think Favors is absolutely underrated. I struggle to think of better offseason acquisitions made by any team other than Schroeder going to the Lakers. If you can think of better acquisitions, or if you want to defend the Favors acquisition as being the best, leave that in the comments or leave that in the live chat, and I'll be interested to hear your take. So, who are your 2 early All-Stars? So, I don't have a great answer to that. Stay tuned, and we'll probably do something more towards the All-Star break as March gets closer. I don't know if Gobert is going to get back in there, but the way he's been playing defensively, I believe he should. But there's a difference between getting the best product for money and for ads out on the court, which is typically offense, than bringing in someone as good as a defensive player like Gobert is. So Ingles and Ferrers get better than Bradley and Ingles, so makes a difference there. Yeah, that makes a big difference. Bradley, sorry, mispronounced that. I love him. I wish that we could have kept him and maybe done some stuff with him looking to the future, but he just wasn't what the Jazz needed from the lockdown defender standpoint that Favors is able to bring to the court. And Ingles, obviously that chemistry that he has with Favors helps a lot. And the rest that Ingles got has definitely helped. I think getting the Iron Man out of his head and also being able just to make sure he's at 100% before going out onto the court has really changed who he is. And that we'll see a market improvement as he continues to take some rest and be able to play at that 100% level the rest of the season. Bogey or Clarkson? If I had to keep one, dang. So, right now, Clarkson, just because Bogey's hurt and he's still struggling coming back. I'd struggle getting rid of Clarkson because he is the 6th man of the year. And I'd struggle getting rid of Bogey because ideally he's our second scoring option. So that's my take. Clarkson's definitely playing better right now, but I am hoping that Bogey will get back into form. Hey, thank you so much, Carter. I really appreciate that you enjoy our channel. If anyone watching can leave a like and leave a sub, we're shooting to get to 350 subscribers by next week. It's a long shot, but we know that we can get there. We're just working on building a great Jazz community where we're able to really talk things through and provide a more local look at the Jazz instead of getting Shaq's and TNT's questionable comments making you wonder if they actually even watched the whole game that they were commenting on. So Joshua Sifis said, do you think the Jazz have a legit shot at winning it all this year, or are they just having a hot start? Sorry. So I think the Jazz have a Toronto Raptors chance of winning it this year. If the Lakers lose Anthony Davis or LeBron James, going to be a lot easier to get into the finals. If a team in the finals has an injury, going to be a lot easier to get there. I'm not wishing an injury on anyone. I do not want the Jazz to win that way. I want them to beat the teams that they play. I cannot truly answer the question about making it to the finals and winning it until we play the Lakers on February 23rd. And that'll just be a sample size of one game. But if the Jazz get dominated by the Lakers like they did, I'm pretty sure every time last season, I'm just going to have to say no. The only way that they'd be able to win in a case where the Lakers are dominating them is if the Jazz have an amazing Atlanta-like season from however many years ago, get the 1 seed. Lakers and Clippers are at the 2-3, either or, and the Jazz end up playing the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. There's a lot of moving pieces. Do they have a statistical chance to win? Yes, and I think they could do it. Do they need the cards to be dealt right? Yeah, they're not the Lakers, who I really believe, no matter what seed they are going to have a really great chance at making it to the Western Conference Finals, then to the finals and winning it. So Corbin Brown with comment. I remember on the first stream with two people. Now we got 20 people. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This is just super awesome to have the channel be seeing the growth that it is. We're really looking to just create that community that I talked about earlier. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I can't believe we got to 26 minutes with the live chat. So really, guys, thank you so much. I'm just so ecstatic right now. Tune in later this week for our Dallas Mavericks post game. I believe that will be on Thursday, but I might have the day wrong on that. So thank you guys so much and have a great rest of your night.